Chapter 311. People searching for her. 1. The Shadow Energy Pearl is a damaged recording device, and to fix it, I must see my teacher. He almost gasped at the abrupt mention of her. By Arya Alhart, do you mean the sorceress you mentioned the other time? The one after the decimating flame orb of the dark sky, the final version of the Demon Empress. Yes, that's her, Jean. It seems you remember her. Is she related to the recording devices left by Soderette? Jean acted as if he knew nothing about it and asked. Misha looked into Jin's eyes. Nothing directly related, I suppose. Everything Soderette prepared for you would have been done 1,000 years ago. It's impossible for a girl who just turned 17 to have made those recording devices with Soderette. Oh, come on. Why are you bringing this up? Murakin asked, irritated. He was quite annoyed to hear another familiar name after what had happened with Pecan and Almango. Misha simply ignored him and looked back at Jean. About 400 years ago, there was a clan called the Hister. The Hister, the real surname of Arya Alhart and the clan to which Valeria Hister belonged. Misha was one of the few beings who had first-hand experience with the magic of the Hister. They were a talented mage clan. Despite their small size, they continued to pose a threat to the Zippels with their limited numbers. There was something transcendent about each member of their clan. There was a mysterious energy in them that couldn't be measured simply by metrics like the star system. Murakin tried to recall the time he heard the name Hister while listening to Misha's description of them. But their greatest value wasn't their combat abilities. It was the culture they built with magic. What exactly was it? The records. The Hister had a record magic that surpassed all others. They had a set of spells that could leave a perfect record that was impossible to manipulate in any way. An unmanipulable record? Setting aside the believability of that, doesn't every story end with someone's bias, interpretation, and intention? I can't fathom what the historians might have intended in their view of history. But the reason I focused on them was that the Zippels couldn't manipulate written history with their record magic. Murakin's eyes widened at her words. So it's record magic. Huh? You might have a horrible personality, but I know you don't make false claims. I can see what must have happened. The Hister clan must have met its demise due to record magic, at the hands of the Zippels, of course. And Arya Alhart must be a descendant of the Hister. Exactly. What a surprise. I thought your brain was just for decoration. Oh dear brother of mine, try using your brain often from now on like you just did. Okay. Murakin was about to get angry again, but Jean spoke before he could. So the reason you suggested I see Arya Alhart, the descendant of the Hister clan, must be because of the record magic. Misha nodded. I can't fix the recording device, so I think you should have her take a look at it. I'm not sure about this, but I think she might help since she's trying to restore the record magic of the Hister clan as well. But it seems she won't have many reasons to help you. Misha, I have no idea how much you trust that human. But in the end, she's an outsider. These recording devices are Soderette's legacy. Do you think the kid should let her see them? Plus, even if she managed to restore some of the recording magic, handling Soderette's devices must be another story. This is shadow energy, remember? Murakin asked. Didn't I just tell you there's something transcendent about the Hister, you idiot? I've experienced the record magic wielded by the mages of the Hister clan myself. They can handle anything related to records, whether it's mana, shadow energy, or anything else. She sounded sure. Even Murakin was starting to feel curious about the Hister clan. Although his older sister had a bad temper and was more devilish than the devil himself, Murakin knew that her judgment had always been accurate. So how are we going to do this? Kid, are you going to meet with her? We should. Neither Misha nor you can fix the recording device, so it doesn't make sense to dwell on it. We should hope that this human named Arya Alhart can fix the recording devices. If she can't, I have a feeling we'll be running all over the place looking for other ways. But I have a question, Misha. What is it? How did you find out that Arya Alhart is a descendant of this Hister or Haster clan? It must have been quite a challenge to locate her since the Zippels wiped out her clan. There's something I promised to the ancestors of Arya because I owed them. To protect their surviving descendants? That was something Jean had never heard of either. From what he remembered of her, she never relied on any other faction or human after the people who raised her, the Grey Owls, were annihilated by the Zippel magicians. The closest she ever got to other people was to manipulate and use them for her benefit. She had always been alone until the day she reached out to Jean, who was broken and desperate. Jean was the only person Valeria had opened up to and trusted since the Grey Owls were wiped out. And that was despite Jean not being strong enough to help Valeria. Just before Jean was killed in the Arkan Kingdom in his past life, she left the house they shared without saying anything to him. To this day, Jean had no idea whether she did it to live alone again or if she was just on a research trip. The mystery would never be solved because Jean died before finding out, and the things that happened in his past life were memories. Not to protect them. In fact, quite the opposite. Misha answered Murakan's question with a bitter smile. What I promised the historians was to watch over their descendants who survived the evil reach of the Zippels. If any of them succumbed to suffering and tried to hand over the Hister magic to the Zippels, what they asked of me was to kill them. It's a cruel request. Jean sounded strangely cold as he made the comment. He felt anger towards Valeria's ancestors, who had made such requests to Misha. It's quite cruel. But so far, not a single historical survivor has tried to side with the Zippels. They have no leading clan, they can't even use the Hister name, and they all suffer under the persecution of the Zippel clan. Yet, each of them has lived their life striving to restore the record magic of the clan. That's interesting. How can one have loyalty to their own clan when the clan itself has disappeared? There must be a magic record that is passed down only to their survivors. The mission and memory as a mage of the Hister clan seemed to pass from generation to generation in that way. Misha also had a rough guess about the historical site of the Hister clan. Jean nodded with a heavy heart. Suddenly, he remembered his days as a provisional flag-bearer when he aspired to become Kiddard's disciple. I'm 16 years old, and you know I possess 7-star mana. And it's said that the mana I obtained at the heritage site is something that only pure-blood Hister with a perfect mana body can inherit. I thought you were raised by the leader of your mercenary group. How do you know about the perfect mana body? It's supposed to be a word that was lost even in historical texts, Kiddard had said. I learned it at the heritage site. When I entered the place, all sorts of record magic unfolded and told me what a perfect mana body is. Then it declared that I met the requirements and transferred the mana to me. Although I have no way to prove it to you. The heritage site of the Hister clan. Just as Misha conjectured, all surviving members of the Hister clan could obtain the records, spells, and mana that the Hister had left in their heritage sites. Arya Owlheart is now the last Hister left. Like the rest of the Hister who came before her, she never succumbed to the Zippel clan's persecution and tracking and has managed to weather it. This girl is as tough as you. Oh. Murakan suddenly shook his head as if he had abruptly remembered something. Hey, Misha, now I remember. What satisfaction. I knew that Hister name felt so familiar to me for some reason. What are you talking about all of a sudden? I'm not sure it's real, but we have a magic tome from a Hister magician. What? Right after the kid became a provisional flag-bearer, we cleaned up the underworld of the Arkan Kingdom. At that time, we bought Shujiel Hister's magic tome at clandestine auctions for 200 gold coins. Misha's gaze shifted from Jean to Murakan, astonished. At that time, Jean bought Shujiel Hister's magic tome for the incredible price of 200 gold coins at Tessing's clandestine auction house, understanding that it was much greater loot than Myalta's rune or Tsenmi's tome. Undoubtedly, the magic tome was genuine because it was written in the same cryptic language that only Jean and his teacher understood. So this is the 25th item. An item left by a magician named Shujiel Hister. Begin bidding. 200. 200. Do we have any other offers? Why did you get this one? Hey kid. Is this because of that good feeling of yours again? Just for no reason. I thought they might suspect if I only get one tome. And I have a good feeling about it, too. During the meeting with Misha, Jean deliberately kept silent about the tome, despite having it on his mind the whole time. He had been looking for a discreet way to bring it up to Misha. Meanwhile, Murakin began reproducing the cryptic codes from Shujil Hister's magic tome with a pen and paper. I took a look at Shujil's magic tome while deciphering Tsenmi's magic tome. It was such an annoying code to decipher that I still remember it. Misha carefully inspected the code and spoke. It must be genuine. You messed it up, but I've seen Shujil use codes like this in his life. It's extremely similar. It's insane. Shujil Hister's magic tome was found at a clandestine auction. Huh? Misha, have you met Shujil Hister in person? And here, I thought the tome was fake because the code was too obscure. Shujil Hister was the same man who asked me to watch over his descendants. For a paltry sum of 200 gold coins? That's outrageous. So where is it? The tome. It's stored in Taiken. I completely forgot about it for a few years now. Those are good news. I was wondering how you should approach that Hister girl. The magic tome you've obtained is likely genuine. It seems like Arya and you were meant to meet after all. This wouldn't be part of Sodaret's plans too, would it? It's not entirely implausible, Murakin. Jean thought it was clearly implausible, but he didn't feel the need to correct them. Jean, find her and make a deal with her using Shujil's magic tome. Tell her to restore the recording devices. Jin's heart raced. Then he caught his breath and looked Misha in the eyes. Do you know where that magician named Arya Owlheart might be? Chapter 312. People searching for her too. On March 21, 1799, Jean, Gilly, and Murakin returned to the Garden of Swords after their well-deserved vacation. The hooves of the horses pulling the armored carriage run candle resonated beautifully. Jean thought about Valeria's hideout, which Misha had informed him about, while occasionally waving to the people of Kalen from the carriage window. Mamit! Ha! Mamit, the lawless city. Valeria was currently established there under her false name, Arya Owlheart. There's an inn in Mamit called the Moonlight Well. The bosses of that scum call themselves kings and reside there. I carried out a mission there during my cadet days. Is Arya Owlheart there too? Yes, it seems like she's using Mamit as a kind of base camp. She lived there when she was around 14. This is crazy. A human girl of 14 lived in that den of criminals? That girl named Arya must be quite talented too. And if she was staying at an inn where their leaders reside, does that mean Arya also holds a position in the city? To be honest, I haven't looked into that. But I agree that the girl is like a finely sharpened sword. This was the conversation they had before leaving Misha's bar, the Shadow. Jean smiled as he imagined his former teacher, who now resided in Mamit. I thought she might be in Mamit around this time. I remember her telling me that Mamit was surprisingly more romantic than one would think. Jean knew that Valeria had lived there for 2 years. That's why he had asked the bartender in Mamit if he knew anyone named Hister when he went there to carry out a mission as a cadet. There must be a reason she uses Mamit as one of her base camps. She never makes a move without purpose. Jean was 25 years old, and Valeria was 23 when they met in their past life. They had spent about 3 years together. At that time, they used to have heartfelt conversations and reveal their innermost thoughts. But Jean didn't know in detail about all of Valeria's activities. Now, he would get to know his teacher 6 years earlier than in his past life. Curiosity pricked at him. What else would he learn about Valeria? Would they be together like in his past life? Jean briefly thought about Valeria, but he soon shook his head. The reunion was only valid for him. He realized that getting too excited about meeting her wouldn't serve him any good. He took out the 2 shadow energy pearls from his inner pockets. They were distinguishable by their size and color. It's really fascinating, young master. To think these tiny beads were recording devices. Gilly spoke as she looked at the shadow energy pearls. If that girl Arya can really restore the device, I'd like to see the scenes too. Are you heading to Mamit right away? Murakin asked. Yes, I will, as long as I don't have anything urgent to deal with at the Garden of Swords. The carriage came to a stop. The Guardian Knights opened the doors. Petro approached the carriage and greeted them. He had been waiting at the entrance of the Garden of Swords for Jin's return. Hello, Petro. How was your vacation, young master? I had a well-deserved break. How have you been? I don't have much to do, apart from paperwork and room management when you're not here, young master. I've been enjoying my time, sir. Despite what he had told Jean, Petro's days had been quite busy. He looked after the Volta clan's lands while Jean was away, discussed matters regarding Jean with Dino, and invested the money allocated to Jean as a flag-bearer in various secure businesses. Above all these activities, checking the state of the clan was what kept him most occupied. But as a result of his efforts, he discovered something peculiar. Madame Rosa is currently out, so you won't need to file a return report, sir. Where has she gone? I apologize, young sir. I don't know where she is. Petro seemed to hint at the guardian knights surrounding them as he spoke. Jean caught the hint and immediately headed to his room. Petro began to speak as they entered the room. Young master, the lady has gone to the Enchanted Fortress. The Enchanted Fortress was the home of the Spectres, one of the largest and most infamous mercenary groups, along with the Black Kings. There was only one reason why Rosa would visit the place at this time. She must be meeting with Kiliak Zippel. There weren't many places on Earth where the leaders of the two clans could meet with security guaranteed. The Enchanted Fortress was a kind of neutral area and had been used as a secret meeting place for the Runcandle and Zippel clans throughout the ages. The Spectres managed to maintain a force scale similar to the Black Kings, although they took on far fewer tasks each year because they received annual fees from both clans in exchange for using their base as a meeting place. How did you find out? It would have been top secret. The chief scribe of the clan owes a favor to young Lady Luna. I was able to use it to find out, sir. Petro played his only card to make the chief scribe do his bidding. He should have done it only after informing Jean. But Jean didn't reprimand him and only waited to hear what he had to say about it. He believed Petro had a good reason for making this decision. Petro's judgment was based on Joshua. I received information that the Council of Elders recently discussed a reward for the second flag-bearer. I don't know the details of the discussion, but the lady went to the Enchanted Fortress right after her reward was decided. So, it was a crucial matter. Could you find out why exactly the reward was? I apologize, young master. I couldn't find out. That's all right. Well done. The two events seem to be clearly related, at least. Jean immediately deduced a scenario. Joshua had achieved something, and the result was significant enough for Rosa to accept the Zippel's offer herself. Otherwise, Rosa would never have rushed to the Enchanted Fortress so urgently. It's not Barton Vicina. Mother wouldn't see Kiliak over that matter. If it were him, she would have met with Kiliak before sending me on the mission. What exactly did Joshua achieve? Petro had the chief scribe recount the ultra-secret meeting between Rosa and Kiliak. But he couldn't find out what Joshua had achieved or what he was supposed to receive as a reward. That only meant that whatever Joshua had achieved was more important than the secret meeting of the two clan leaders. Jean was trying to concentrate on what it could be when he heard heavy footsteps at his door. Jean, is Jean here? A raspy voice. It was Jed. Jean had to hold back his laughter. It seems he successfully improved the final move, the Cascade of Petals. Jean, Petro, and Gilly nodded. Hey, uncle. Little brat. If you were going on vacation, you should have told me. I didn't think you'd be upset about it. Who said I'm upset? Forget it. Your uncle felt humiliated by your absence. That's what happened. Did something happen? Those darn old bags don't trust your uncle. Haha. Follow me now. Today is finally the time to wipe those wrinkled faces off. This was something he could never have imagined in his middle school days. But there was something endearing about Jed's enthusiasm. All right, shall we, uncle? Jed grandiosely led the way like an excited child and headed to the training grounds. He had no idea that his nephew had been determined to beat up his uncle from the moment they met. Shing! Jed unsheathed his sword as soon as they arrived at the training ground. Now take a look. Your dear uncle has developed a finishing move that equals the Cascade of Legends you taught me. Uncle Jed, before we begin, there's something I must tell you. What is it? I've had a change of heart. I think you should call the upgraded Petal Cascade by its own name. Jed glared at him. Suddenly? Why? I didn't feel like showing off my skills to the other elders. I could brag about the things I have, but they would never accept me anyway. What the hell are you saying? I've already discussed it with those old bags of bones. We agreed to reward you once I can prove that the clan's final move has improved thanks to you, after you return from your vacation. And I've already talked to them about the sixth finishing move, the lightning. Lightning? The sixth finishing move? What are you talking about? Please don't tell me the fourth flag-bearer snitched on my other sword techniques to the elders. Is that a problem? Then Jean sighed and shook his head. Uncle Jed, I don't have many cards I can play to survive in this ruthless clan. I wouldn't have enough even if I kept them all hidden and only used them in the most dire moments. I guess you could feel that way. Also, the elders don't look favorably upon me anyway. I'm not very convinced I should share what I possess with them. However, dear Jean, don't you care about your uncle's reputation? If you don't show them, they will think I lied out of my own ego. All you have to do is take credit for improving the fourth finishing move, the petals in cascade. I won't demonstrate anything about the sixth finishing move, the lightning, and I will never perform the cascade of legends before them. Jed felt completely frustrated by how inflexible Jean was about it. While he couldn't understand Jin's sudden change, it was undeniable that Jean was right. Has something happened to him during the vacation? Why all of a sudden? Jed was pondering the matter when he suddenly realized something. That brat. You want something from me, don't you? Now that he thought about it, there seemed to be a mysterious smile on Jin's face. Jean, are you trying to negotiate with me? Then Jean shook his head in the most pretentious way possible. You little brat, you'd better be straightforward with me. If what you're asking is reasonable, I'll grant it. All right, then let me ask. What did the second flag-bearer, Joshua, achieve that Mother is heading to the Enchanted Fortress for? Jed's eyes widened. What? But you've just returned. How did you find out about that? Tell me, please. You seem determined to ruin your uncle's reputation if I don't tell you. I'm a flag-bearer of Runcandle too. I don't want to be left out of crucial clan events. As selfish as it sounded, Jean was right. Jed sighed. Jean, I don't know exactly what Joshua has achieved. I've asked too much of you. I apologize. I'm leaving now. Jean bowed his head and turned, making Jed grit his teeth. Hey, come on, brat. Yes, uncle? Did you call me? He's in. Jean looked confident. He locked eyes with Jed. You shouldn't tell anyone the things I'm about to tell you. I swear I won't. Have you? Have you heard of a clan called Hister? Jean was almost taken aback by the words. Chapter 313. People searching for her. 3. The Hister? Jean had no idea he'd hear that name at this moment and place. Is Joshua's achievement somehow related to the Hister clan? His heart started beating faster. There was only one surviving Hister, Valeria. I haven't heard of them. Jean spoke bluntly after barely keeping his poker face. They were the only clan that threatened the Zipples with their magic. The reason you've never heard of them is that they were annihilated by the Zipples and erased from history. Now, there's hardly any information left about them. Oh, now that you mention it, I might have heard of such a name back in my provisional flag-bearer days. No wonder there isn't much information left about them. I guess the Zipples got rid of everything. Yes, the Zipples seem very particular about them, considering they still promise rewards for a clan that was wiped out hundreds of years ago. Is there any survivor? Only one. A few years ago, the Runcandles realized that the Zipples are searching for that person. So the clan has secretly been trying to locate the surviving Hister. Jean had never heard of Valeria being hunted by the Runcandles. He had never had access to that information because in his past life he was nothing like a flag-bearer. Most considered him useless. My master never told me anything about the Runcandles tracking her. Did she never realize it? No, that's not possible. She probably didn't bring it up because she didn't want me to feel it. Jean and Valeria hardly spoke about the Runcandles in his past life, because the clan Runcandle's name itself symbolized his greatest pain and failure. So, does this achievement by the second flag-bearer have something to do with the capture of the survivor? However unlikely, there was still a small chance that Valeria had been captured. She might very well have been released after her capture in his past life. Or escaped. No, it's not that. Jean felt relieved deep down. Jed paused and looked around. Obviously, there was no one spying on them in the training field, but he wanted to emphasize the confidentiality of the information. Although she wasn't captured, it seems she found the fake name the survivor was using. It's not like we have her whereabouts or custody. We have nothing more than the name, and you mean to tell me that was enough for Mother to see Kiliak and propose an offer herself. And that's why I told you to keep it a secret, didn't I? How astonishing to think that a single descendant of a fallen clan can have such an impact. It almost seems as if the Zippels fear this clan called the Hister. Jean remembered Misha's words. I can't comprehend what the Hister might have intended in their vision of history. But the reason I focused on them was that the Zippels couldn't manipulate the recorded history with their registry magic. A spell to leave a record that was impossible to manipulate. The Zippels actually feared that the spell could be reintroduced into the world. Anyway, is this enough? Uncle, by any chance. Now what? Do you also know the name of the survivor? And what is Mother trying to gain from the negotiation? I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. Are you thick-skinned? You're asking too much. Either that, or you take your uncle for a fool. I apologize. However, I just thought your reputation represents much more value than that information, Uncle. It seems you made friends with flatterers while you were outside the clan. Didn't I tell you before? I don't know in detail what Joshua's achievement is. I don't know the fake name of the survivor, or what the acting matriarch wants. It's a shame, but in reality it didn't feel that way at all. The news of my clan's interest in my master is a gain in itself. Jean received this unexpected news practically for free. It would have been perfect if he could have also figured out what Rosa intended to do with it, but he could always look into that later. A shame? A wicked brat. If you ever change your word about the final moves, you're going to experience some interesting things right here. Of course not, Uncle. Thank you. Jean bowed. Jed clicked his tongue in disapproval of Jin's craftiness. But in reality, Jed didn't disapprove of his ways. He found it rather endearing to see his nephew standing up to him. Of course, if he had only done it for show, Jed would have scolded him immediately. But Jed thought Jean was just being firm to get what he wanted. Jed's sword took on an aura and emitted light. If you're grateful, then make sure to show the elders that you've found clues to refine the clan's finishing moves. Soon, Jed began to execute the final move. An enhanced version of the Runcandle clan's fourth finishing move, Petals in Cascade. Jean focused on his uncle's sword. He watched as Jed unfolded the aura around the blade, making it almost fall and form the shapes of petals. Everything was just like the first time. The aura petals scattered in unpredictable paths, which were also identical to those of the previous time. But it was right after withdrawing the sword from the vertical slash. Kroom. Pillars of aura suddenly sprang from where the cascade of petals was performed. The petals repeatedly came together and spread from the pillars, making it look as if the aura petals of a tree were rustling in the wind. The master move of legends you showed me, the cascade, spilled lightning energy wherever the sword had passed, just like its namesake. On the other hand, the cascade of petals follows an upward pattern. So, I thought of the most efficient shape it could take using aura instead of lightning energy. The difference with the previous form of petals in Cascade was clearly evident. So, what do you think? When I first saw the cascade of petals, I thought the move was a class below the cascade. But now it's just as powerful. The cascade would be more suitable for single-target combat, while the new petals in Cascade seem suitable for fighting multiple foes. Jed smiled so much that his lips couldn't stretch any further. As expected, you've figured it out. The reason why petals in Cascade didn't surpass the Cascade was that both techniques were the same. In fact, the Cascade of Petals was a version of the Cascade without the lightning energy, so it was obviously weaker. It had been only a month since Jean had taught Jed the Cascade. Yet, Jed analyzed the move he had only seen once and reformed the petals in Cascade final move one step further in that short span. This wasn't just an improvement. could be said that he practically perfected the move. Jean held back his comment and brought up something else. I see why you must have gone through a lot for this, uncle. But I have to ask. Do you really intend to put my name on the enhanced petals in Cascade? I've thought about it a lot, but this isn't something I should take credit for. It's purely your achievement, uncle. I've already told you I'll put your name on petals in Cascade, and I won't retract that. But, as you say, I know the Council of Elders isn't very pleased with you. I also know that in the end, you'll prove them right, whether I put your name on the play or not, as you always have. Then why are you so insistent on attributing to me what you've achieved for yourself? Uncle? Is it because you've already told the council that you had my help? Jed shook his head. You think so? It's not because I like you or anything like that. I just thought it would be best to clear my debt sooner. Besides, lately, you've accomplished something significant for the clan. The remarkable thing Jed referred to was the assassination of Barton Vicina. So, make sure to play fair while your uncle still feels like showing you some kind of support. However, as I mentioned before, if you ever stray from what's right, I'll be the first to draw the sword against you. I understand. And one more thing. I've changed my mind. About what? We should postpone the exhibition of evidence to the elders for improving the final moves. At least until I finish refining the 6th final move, Lightning, as well. Show me the other master move of Legends that Dyphus saw. I will show you, of course. But I want you to remember one thing, uncle. What is it? If it had been any other elder or anyone else from the family, not you, I would have prevented them from reforming the final moves I possess. And if you manage to improve the 6th move as well, this time, please put your name on it. I can't agree to that. I'll put your name on it too. So stop babbling and show me the move already. The two of them didn't leave the training ground until well into the night, all the while showcasing their skill with the Sword of Legends and the final moves. Every time Jean showed Jed new Sword of Legends moves, the smile on Jed's face never faded as he imagined how they would use them to improve the final moves, and how the council would beg both him and Jean to see them. Phew! Joshua sighed and slumped into a chair. He lit a cigarette that accentuated the fatigue on his face. A woman arrived at his side. Joshua, how did it go? It was Joshua's wife. It seems Kiliak Zippel didn't accept Mom's offer. Conversations between Rosa and Kiliak had broken down. But Kiliak had already gained something when Rosa mentioned they had discovered Hister's name. Both the acting matriarch and us expected that. Don't be so discouraged. The name isn't enough. I need to capture Hister so that Mom can exert significant pressure on Kiliak. The woman gently wrapped her arms around Joshua's neck and smiled. In any case, we have her name. It's only a matter of time before we catch that bitch. That dirty rat is good at hiding, so it will take some time. But in the end, we'll have her before the Zippels do. The Zippels still didn't know Arya Alhart's name. Therefore, it was likely that the Runcandles would find Valeria first. When that time comes, Kiliak will have to give up much more than what we proposed this time. So don't be in such a hurry, Joshua. Was the last day of March 1799. A blazing sun shone down on the city where villains swarmed like insects. It was a harsh land where not even weeds grew. The city of scum and lawless people. Mommy, this reminds me of the old days. Jean was 15 and in middle class when he came here in his current life. He had come a long way since then, but Mommy hadn't changed a bit during that time. The city's inhabitants talked about terrible crimes as if they were defining feats. Its streets were littered with waste, organs, fingers, and heads that had clearly once belonged to the living. Just like 4 years ago, Mamit's criminals were surprised to see Jean enter the city. But their surprise was for an entirely different reason. It's Jean Runcandle. This is insane. What's a man like him doing in this mess? You idiots. Don't look at him if you want to keep your heads. That's what they felt about him. Fear was in the eyes of Mamit's villains when they set eyes on Jean. Mesa. Yes, my sir. Go and tell the kings of Mamit in the Moonlight Hall. Well, I want each and every one of them lined up outside and on their knees before I arrive. Chapter 314. People searching for her. 4. Your word is my command, Mesa replied obediently. She had recently passed the final test to become a Guardian Knight and had been assigned as the 12th flag bearer, alongside Scott Rymon, who stood on the other side of Jean. Scott. Yes, my lord. Go clean up the trash on the streets. Robberies, murders, violence. All it took was turning one's head to witness the anarchists committing crimes in real time. That was the scum who hadn't realized Jean had arrived in Mamit. He didn't actually care if the underworld scum fought amongst themselves. But there were also civilians mixed in. Jin's order aimed to put an end to the criminals who were violating civilians. I will fulfill your order, sir. Mesa and Scott passed by Jean and began to move. Within seconds, the shouts of the anarchists began to sound from different places. The frequency of the shouts rapidly decreased. After Scott knifed a few, the rest got the hint. It wasn't just any Guardian Knight who had come to this place on a mission. A Run-Candle flag bearer was here in this wasteland. The streets fell silent immediately, but Scott couldn't care less. He went through every alley like a ghost to carry out the cleanup. The streets emptied as well. Mamit's criminals were busy hiding in their houses and taverns like prey spotting their natural predators. Only a cold breeze swept through the empty streets. Mamit fell silent for the first time in years. Mesa and Scott have grown very strong. Jean formed a soft smile. It was quite interesting that they were now full-fledged Guardian Knights. It was about time for Velop to return from the snowy ridges of the southeastern Middle Kingdom as well. The remaining 7 members of the younger faction would also take their final tests. Once they all become Guardian Knights, maybe I should take them to a hellish training ground. If possible, it would be great if they all became strong enough to be called up as Black Knights before they turn 50. Wait, maybe I should make them work hard so they have no choice but to become Black Knights. The two were completely unaware of Jin's wicked plans. Mesa and Scott had to calm their excited hearts as they forced Mamit's anarchists to submit. They were ready to give it their all now that they could be with Jean once more. Jean walked slowly toward the Moonlight Pit. Just as the lives of the younger faction boys had changed. My teacher's life will be altered compared to my past life once she meets me. Perhaps Joshua discovering her fake name at this moment could also be a result of my return to life. That sent shivers down his spine. He always knew that every little thing he did after his return to life could very well change the lives of the people around him. That's why he tried his best to make decisions that would guide all his loved ones to a better ending, as much as possible. But he wasn't sure what to do about Valeria. He couldn't know if meeting Valeria would have a positive impact on her or not. But now wasn't the time to ponder over such matters. He should keep her by his side and provide her with a safety net. In my past life, neither the Run-Candles nor the Zippels managed to capture her. But in this life, one couldn't be sure what would happen. Valeria was undoubtedly a strong person. She was one of the strongest people. He knew. It wasn't just about her combat ability. It was the strength of will that Valeria possessed as a person. She was radiant and admirable. But there were things in the world that couldn't be solved by willpower alone. A good example would be a 17-year-old prodigy sorceress evading pursuit from 2 giant clans with no one to trust. Unlike Jean during his days as a provisional flag bearer, Valeria had no siblings to hide her in La Ferosa or comrades willing to risk their lives to protect her. She would be unable to stay ahead of the pursuit by the 2 clans forever. If I don't help her, they'll eventually catch her. As her disciple, now was the time to repay the grace of my master from my past life. My confused heart calmed as I approached the Moonlight Pit. He has arrived, my lord. Mesa and Scott bowed their heads as Jean reached the entrance of the Moonlight Pit. Behind them, 5 Union leaders and their subordinates were kneeling, neatly arranged in rows. There were about 100 subordinates, and they were the officers of each of their factions. Jean observed them for a while without saying anything. He was looking for Valeria. She's not here. So, the next step was to find a leader who might know Valeria. Fortunately, there's a familiar face here. You. Yes, you. What's your name? Jean looked at the leader kneeling at the front as he spoke. I am York, sir. Do I know you, sir? The leader replied, stating his name politely. Indeed, York already knew Jean. "Hello, kid. You seem like quite the talent for your age, but it won't do you much good to stay in this city for too long, let alone if you intend to cause trouble. Thank you for your advice, but I need to find someone. I'll make sure not to cause trouble for the people staying here," Jean had said. "Haha. I heard that the other day you killed a thug in the taverns with a single blow, but now you're acting like a meek lamb. That's because you're different from all those. Turns out, I know very well what to expect from you. You pass for your manners. Well, then I'll let you stay here a few more days. Thank you. I won't forget the fact that the kings of Mamit did me a favor even after my return." That was the conversation Jean had with York and the other kings of Mamit while on the intermediate class mission. "Yes, York. The guy who made comments about my manners in the Moonlight Pit lobby got his head cut off by the swords of the secret palace. Do you remember me now?" "Oh." The leader's eyes widened as he nodded. Of course, he remembered. After Jean had terrorized the Moonlight Pit to carry out his mission and pretended that the magician had come from the outside, the leaders of Mamit suffered under Cirrus for a long time afterward. It was all because Ryu and Haiten, of the 7 swords of the secret palace, were unable to find the magician Jean, who had launched the lightning call at the Moonlight Pit. Cirrus continued to harass the leaders for some time afterward in an effort to find the culprit. Only after a while did she realize that the boy she had released, Jean, might have been the culprit. And when she did, she gathered the leaders and had them investigate the boy's activities in Mamit, from his date of arrival, purpose, and every little thing he did in Mamit. It was a great misfortune for the leaders of Mamit, but they had no power to refuse Cirrus's orders. "Lady Cirrus." The boy popped the head of a newbie named Tonk in a tavern shortly after arriving in Mamit. Then he acted like he was looking for someone. He came to the Moonlight Pit and did nothing else in Mamit. "Is that so?" "Yes, lady. As I see it, he may not be the culprit at all. You know, it doesn't make sense for that kid to be casting 6 or 7-star spells. If it's not him, are you saying my men lost the sorcerer? That's not what I meant. And even if you were right and he really was the culprit, Lady Cirrus, I don't think he was targeting the secret palace. Maybe one of us offended him, and he took it out on that person." "Who was he looking for?" "I was told he was looking for someone named Fista or Fester." It was York, the leader standing in front of Jean at that moment, who had spoken to Cirrus back then. York deliberately told Cirrus the name was Fista or Fester because he was very upset with her, but he had clearly confirmed that Jean, at the age of 15, was looking for a Hister. Of course, Cirrus had to waste a lot of time trying to find a Fista and a Fester. "I apologize for not recognizing you immediately, Sir Jean. York, stay here. The rest of you, disappear from my sight as fast as you can." Jean spoke in a low voice. The other leaders and subordinates quickly scattered like roaches. The power represented by the Runcandle name within Huffister was not something lawless individuals could confront. "Let's go inside and talk." York's intuition told him at that moment that Jean had returned to Mamit to find the person he had been looking for 4 years ago. "Yes, sir." The two entered the Moonlight Pit. Scott and Maya then guarded the inn as gatekeepers. The lobby was completely empty. "I'm looking for someone." "Yes, Sir Jean. Please tell me who it is. If you can give me the name or description, I assure you I can find that person, as long as they are within Mamit." "Is there a girl around 17 years old residing in Mamit right now?" "She would have red hair and a silver pine staff." "Red hair and a staff." York searched his memory. As far as he knew, there were no red-haired girls with a silver pine staff in Mamit. Besides, how could a 17-year-old girl survive in this violent city? But it reminded him of someone. There are no red-haired girls with a staff, but there's a girl of a similar age who recently joined my organization as an errand girl. "What's her name?" "She said it's Arya. I don't know her last name. She was born in the alleys, and she's quite sharp too." Jin's heart began to beat faster. "Is there no one else?" "None, sir. That girl is the only one under 20 years old." "Should I bring her here?" "Let me check." "Yes, Sir Jean. Please wait a moment. I'll go tell my subordinates to bring Arya." York was about to get up, but the lobby's ceiling suddenly collapsed, dropping a spear through it. It was a blue spear formed with lightning-based mana. It was the variation spell Jean had experimented with in the Great Mitra Desert. The spear pierced York's head and stuck into the ground. York didn't even have time to scream. Jean slowly raised his head and looked up. There was a hooded figure whose figure was visible through the hole in the ceiling. He could recognize the person, despite the hood covering the face. Even the unfamiliar brown hair peeking out from the hood was enough to convince him. It was Valeria Hister, his master. He felt as if time had stopped. He wanted to shout her name, tell her that it had been so long. All sorts of indescribable feelings crossed his heart like rays of light spreading in all directions. Jean, Valeria asked upon meeting Jean. Chapter 3:15. Secondary images of the past or future. 1. Jean opened his eyes wide. Did she just say my name? Hearing Valeria utter that single syllable that was his name took 19 years. If she hadn't extended her hand to him when Jean wandered the world as a useless and desperate wanderer in his past life, Jin's life would have been nothing but dark and miserable days. She was his teacher, a friend, a trusted companion, the object of his compassion, and his savior. Silence fell. In that brief span of a few seconds, Jin's heart was too full for words. He felt as if his head had heated up immediately and gone blank, and his vision had darkened. He wanted to answer her here and now if he could. If only he could utter her name as she had in their past life. But he had to be rational. It's impossible for my teacher to remember me. She has no memory of her past life. If he suddenly embraced her and showed his affection, the whole situation could turn into a mess. He was the only one experiencing this as a reunion. I must act in a way she can accept. If not, I'll only raise her guard further. And if that weren't the case, even if Valeria also had memories of her past life like Jean, emotionally approaching her was foolish. Jean regarded Valeria as even more ruthless than his father. If she possessed memories of her past lives but didn't show them, that meant she had done so as part of an elaborate plan. Or perhaps the happy memories of their past lives no longer mattered to her. Whether she had memories of her past lives or not, it was necessary to start this conversation as smoothly as possible. He couldn't afford for his emotions to reveal his weaknesses. After all, Jean was here to make a request of Valeria. He never engaged in deep conversations or made deals unless it was absolutely necessary, or unless it was with someone he could respect. He had to fulfill at least one of the two. It's quite an elegant entrance. Can you really afford to kill your boss like that, Arya Alhart? No. Should I perhaps call you Arya Hister? He dropped both names, Alhart and Hister, yet Valeria didn't seem surprised at all. Jean didn't know if she was suppressing her surprise or simply expected it. Anyway, wasn't York's death determined the moment you came looking for me? Valeria landed in the lobby with a slight movement. As vile as he might be, it's still concerning to kill someone who followed one's orders. I've taken care of that for you, so maybe gratitude is in order. Valeria removed her hood and revealed her face as if she didn't care. She had brown-dyed hair, bright red pupils, and tightly pressed lips. She had a youthful appearance due to her young age, 17, but retained an unapproachable expression. Jean had never seen Valeria at 17. It was clear that Valeria would be weaker and more fragile than at 26. She was smaller and thinner than he remembered. However, something made her feel sharper than in her past life when she was fully grown, like the teeth of a wounded beast. I suppose you could think that way, but above all, I didn't think you'd be so eager to reveal your face. Let me warn you in advance. If you ever decide to attack me, I'll definitely prioritize safety over curiosity. Safety, you say? It almost seems like you could escape from me if you wanted to. If I couldn't, I wouldn't have appeared before you after killing York. Neither of them displayed any emotion, but both were busy calculating the course of the conversation in their heads. I wanted to know who might have been looking for me in this city 4 years ago. After finding out it was you, I thought about starting a conversation. Valeria moved to Mamit shortly after Jean completed his intermediate class mission and lived there for 2 years. This was because an inheritance place of the Hister was located in the lawless city. To find it, she used magic registration several times in Mamit. And as a result, she discovered a record that someone had been searching for a Hister in a tavern 4 years ago, along with the location of the site. Furthermore, the heritage she found in Mamit allowed her to glimpse a record of the future, stating that the same person would meet her again around March 1799. That's why she was in Mamit. She had been waiting for Jean. I wonder how you found out that I was looking for you. That's my question. How do you know? About me? These are the allied realms of Huffister. Do you think there's anything here we don't know? If the Runcandles were searching for Hister, it would obviously have been top secret. At that time, you were just a 15-year-old intermediate class cadet. That means that information shouldn't have been within your reach since you weren't even a flag bearer. Well, top secret, huh? Are you overestimating yourself? I'm not overestimating myself. I know I'm great. See? Even the great Jean Runcandle himself is here. State the reason you sought me out. Jean smiled. I have a request to make. What kind of request? The restoration of a recording device. By recording device, do you mean something left by my ancestors? I'll tell you when you agree to help me. Valeria then mocked him. It seems you know what the name Hister represents. But, unfortunately for you, there's no reason why I should help you. I can always come up with reasons. Collaboration for survival to start with. You can't kill me. Why do you feel that way? Because that would help the Zippel and your competitors. You're definitely overestimating yourself. Jean unsheathed Sigmund and waved it close to Valeria's eyes in an instant. Strands of her dyed hair fell to the floor. Astounded, Valeria looked at the fallen strands and blinked. I didn't think you'd be such a disappointment. Have you come to make a request, and all you do is threaten me by force? Is that all you've got? Valeria was furious as she stared and yelled at Jean. Caught Jean off guard. It was very strange to see her like this. In his previous life, Valeria would never have reacted this way. To think she'd reveal her emotions to someone who could be a friend or foe, especially when she has more reason to see me as an enemy right now. Maybe she's not skilled in controlling her emotions since she's almost 10 years younger now. But still, there's something odd. She seems very disappointed about something. Jean shrugged. I hope you don't take it as a threat. It's advice. If any Runcandle other than me were here right now, it would have been more than just a few strands of hair. It seems you've misunderstood everything. The only reason you're in front of me right now is that I chose to meet with you. Neither the Runcandles nor the Zippels will be able to find me from today. Her speech was rapid, and her tone trembled slightly. Valeria was unable to control her emotions. Act as if I'm expecting something from me. Things would be different if one assumed that Jean knew nothing about Valeria. Valeria's current behavior wasn't strange at all. She might simply appear as a person weary of the major clans due to her nomadic life. But it was exactly what Jean thought. Valeria was terribly disappointed in Jean. In reality, Valeria had been curious about that person named Jean even when she was much younger than now. It was more or less when she began to realize what the records were. Or maybe it was when she started to understand what the records meant to a Hister. That's when she had the same dream over and over again. She didn't know if it was a senseless dream or a series of a long dream about the future. But the dream always continued, like a powerful afterimage. The dream mainly consisted of an adult version of herself conversing with a random wanderer in a dark alley of an unknown city. Are you going to sit there for the rest of your life? Get lost. How pathetic this is. Jean Runcandle, your brothers will only be delighted about this, you know? She had said. Who are you? How do you know my name? Judging by your curiosity, I guess there are some things you still desire from this world after all. Follow me. I'll forgive you for sticking your knife into the one person who reached out to you. She had that dream almost every day, and it was a great mystery to Valeria. Why did that unknown man always appear in her dreams, and what was his relationship with the wretch in the dream? But the emotion she felt for him was clear. In the dream, she felt compassion. Sometimes the dream seemed more real than reality. She would wake up drenched in sweat and bewildered. In the dream, she was a decade younger. It was only when the world was shaken by the incident in the Holy Kingdom that she realized the vagabond was Jean. That was when Jean Runcandle's face was revealed to the entire world. Thanks to the event, Valeria realized that the man in her dreams was the youngest son of the Runcandle clan, whom everyone seemed to praise. He seemed much better than he appeared in her dreams, but she could clearly tell that he was the same Jean Runcandle she had embraced for no apparent reason. The reason she had shouted Jin's name upon seeing him was due to the dream she had had for the past decade. It was a habit to do the same thing in her dreams every night. I made a mistake. I attached too much significance to someone I had seen in my dreams and got excited for nothing. But a recording device? I suppose it won't hurt to check. Besides, I need to find out how this Jean Runcandle tracked me down. Valeria turned away. It was time to regain her composure and weigh the demands against what she could gain. Arya Alhart, are you leaving with nothing? Do you have anything else to say? If it's about restoring your recording devices, you can find someone else. I have Shujil Hister's magic tome, Jean said. She abruptly halted. She turned back to Jean. What did you say? Jean pulled Shujil's magic tome from his inner pockets. I've been told these codes belong to the Hister. What happened next made Valeria gasp in surprise, her hands covering her mouth, as she looked at Jean in disbelief. What have you? Jean opened the tome in half and split it in half. See for yourself if it's a genuine Hister's magic tome or not. Jean handed half of the tome to Valeria. Surprise was evident on Valeria's face as she took the magic tome. Jean felt terrible about it, but he had a reason to do so. I mustn't give my teacher time to think. She's young, and I see she's less meticulous than I remember her to be. But if she takes it easy, she'll play tricks on me. Valeria's eyes made a tiny movement to the left as she examined the cryptic codes in the tome. It was a habit of Valeria's that she displayed when she felt troubled or cornered. Where did you get this? At the underground auction house in the Kingdom of Arkan. The place doesn't exist anymore. If you restore the recording devices I have, I'll give you the rest of the tome as a reward. Furthermore, I promise to keep you safe from the Runcandles and the Zipples. Keeping me safe from the Runcandles and Zipples? I had no idea the 12th flag-bearer of the Runcandles held so much power. I would think securing your own place would be a struggle right now. Besides, I'm not so weak as to need your protection. If you're not weak, then prove it by taking the other half from my hands. That's impossible. But what I can do is flee with the half in my hands. From what I've seen of you so far, that sounds plausible. Well, feel free to do so. But I can promise you that you'll never see the other half again. Whoosh! Jean conjured a mana flame over his hand and brought it towards the remaining half of the tome. This makes no sense to me if you don't cooperate with me. Make your decision. Are you going to help me or run away? What I can promise you is this. If you decide to help me, if you choose to stand with me. Jean paused. He cleared his emotions and continued. I will do and give you everything that is in my power if you wish for it. Of all the things Jean had done and said, to Valeria today this was the only one he meant sincerely. Chapter 316. Secondary Images of the Past or Future. 2. Valeria's gaze leaned further to the left. Her confusion and tension were on the rise. In her wildest dreams, she had never imagined that Jean would be reading her subconscious, barely perceptible features. It was no surprise. Even in her past life, the only ones who knew her features, apart from Jean, were the mercenaries of the Grey Owl who had raised her. Jean felt just as tense. It was unlikely to happen. But if Valeria were to give up the other half of the magic tome, there wasn't much he could do to improve their relationship. The sound of flames over Jin's hand and the blood dripping from York's corpse echoed in the silence. Why don't we extinguish the flames and talk about this? It worked. I won't remove the flames until I get a definitive answer. Jean felt relieved deep down but shook his head to make the point clear. Valeria nodded. Fine. I'll help you. If the recording device is something I can work with, I'll have it restored. A wise decision. But this is only an exchange. I'm not saying I'll join you. I hope we both understand that clearly. Whom? Jean closed his hand and extinguished the flame. Valeria's eyes directed another straight gaze. After all, continuing the alliance is the result of mutual need. You won't regret this decision. Show me the object. Jean produced the 2 shadow energy pearls. The pearls surprised Valeria once again. They closely resembled the various recording devices she had seen in her clan's heritage places. They only differed in color. It seems the device is made of shadow energy. Were they made by the god you contracted with, Sodaret? Yes. Then why can't you just ask Sodaret to restore them? For some unknown reason, I am unable to communicate with Sodaret. So how are you so sure these are recording devices? What if they are just pieces of shadow energy? It's because I've seen video recordings stored inside them. But how? Is that something you need to know to work with them? I thought we were just making an exchange, and you wouldn't be joining me. You seem to demand a lot of information for someone in such conditions. Valeria shrugged. You're right. Will you leave them with me for a moment? Valeria took the shadow energy pearls and raised mana over her hands. A mysterious resonance began forming between her hand and the pearls. It had been a long time since she had seen something like this. Valeria was casting the Hister clan's registration magic. She wondered if her magic would work with a shadow energy device as well. Jean observed her for a while, pretending not to know what she was doing. And shortly after, Tist, zzzt, Tist. Jean widened his eyes. The pearls began emitting the same sound as when they were first activated. Meanwhile, Valeria nodded, as if she had expected this to happen. They are undoubtedly recording devices, but they are damaged. They don't activate correctly. You could have checked it. Did you have to ask so many questions? Thanks to that, I now know you can't communicate with Sodaret. I should praise your persistence. Do you think you can restore it? Jean asked. Maybe, Valeria replied as she placed the shadow energy pearls on the table. It's a lukewarm answer for someone who was paid up front. Look, Jean Runcandle. Those things called recording devices are much more complex and intricate than you can imagine. Plus, they're not identical to the ones my ancestors used to make, so I need time to understand them. Okay? Jean also knew other traits of Valeria. Her eyes drifting to the left out of anxiety wasn't the only trait she had. She crossed her arms and twiddled the tip of her hair with her thumb and index finger. It was something she always did when Valeria was very intrigued by an object or a particular situation. The fact that she was intrigued by the recording device meant that it could be restored, or that she needed the item as well. If she ever needed them, it was probably because they helped her recover the Hister's registration magic. Jean thought about Sodaret's plans, the records he had left, and his meeting with Valeria today. For some reason, everything seemed like fate's work. Even if it seemed like a coincidence, Jean had the feeling that Valeria and he were destined to reunite in the end, like 2 puzzle pieces that fit together. All right then, I'll give you time. How much do you need? I don't know that either. Is it because your magic registration is incomplete? The restoration of historical record magic was incomplete even when Valeria was 26. In Jin's past life, if memory serves me right, at that time she would have only found about 3 heritage places. She's not lying when she says she needs more time. The level of registration magic Valeria handled at 17 was extremely limited. It seems the Runcandles have more information about me than I thought. Enough to require my protection at the very least, Jean replied. I've told you already. I don't need your protection. My mother and older brother are looking for you. They told me they've discovered the name you're using now. Arya Alhart. It's not the only name I use, and I've made it a point to cover my tracks. Anka Rothman, Rillian Hazard, Lucille Scope, Hartia Ven. Jean mentioned Valeria's other false names. Her eyes twitched. It was a sign of how surprised she was. She rarely showed any emotion when dealing with other people, except for the few traits she had. Aren't those your aliases? You say you've covered your tracks, but somehow this conversation was possible. Not even the Runcandles and the Zippels knew Valeria's aliases other than Arya Alhart. Except for Valeria herself, Jean was the only one who knew those names. The problem was that Valeria had no choice but to assume the worst. Where had she left traces? She believed she had cleared them without a doubt. Valeria quickly turned to her memory but couldn't figure out when she had slipped up. The fact that she couldn't figure it out implied that she might have slipped up elsewhere too. Uncertainty gripped Valeria's heart. As strong as she was inside, she was still only 17 for now. No matter how many of my names they know, they'll never catch me. And like I said, you could only know me because I decided to talk to you. I appreciate your confidence, but don't you think you should be more cautious? If the Runcandles can find out so much, the Zippels surely have more information about you. Well, I'm so moved by your concern that I might start crying, you know? The shadow energy pearls you have in your hands are more valuable to me than Shujil Hister's magic tome or your life, for that matter. I'm only concerned that you might get caught and lose them in the process. Jean Runcandle with a 400 million bounty isn't the only one capable of staying out of sight from the Runcandles and Zippels. Anyway, I'll follow your advice to be more cautious. Valeria stored the shadow energy pearls in the inner pockets of her robe. I suppose that's enough for discussion for now. Give me an address where I can send letters. Some safe place. You can send them to the head of the Central Defense Guard of Tychon Free City, Elisa Badger. I'll send letters if there's any progress in the restoration after my return. And where can I contact you? Jean said it without any expectation. Since she was constantly on the run, he didn't believe she would give him an address. But surprisingly, Valeria pulled out a piece of paper and wrote down her address. Jin's eyes widened when he saw the address. This is the center of Samiel. Samiel, the city of assassins, the Anonymous. Only the families of the anonymous assassins and those whom the Anonymous owed favors could reside in the center of Samiel. It was the only non-lethal area within the city, which Jean had used in the past to win the bet against Owl. Valeria had no family, but she had earned the right to own a house in the center of Samiel as a benefactor to the Anonymous. Well, now that I think about it, the Zippels could have always contacted the Anonymous to locate or assassinate my teacher in my past life. Maybe that's why she was never harmed by the world's top assassins. She had never thought much about it in her past life, nor had she thought that Valeria might have a hideout in Samiel. I don't actually stay there, but I can check any letters that arrive at that address. So, if there's something you want to ask of me, get in touch with me there. Valeria had a reason for giving Jean an address where she could be located. She wanted to know more about Jean. It was true that she was disappointed by how different he was from the man in her dreams. But for some reason, talking to him made her feel something. She felt like she had found someone she had been missing. He was the first person to make her feel this way, apart from the deceased mercenaries of the Grey Owls. I had no idea the Anonymous treated you as a benefactor. Your reaction tells me the Runcandles still didn't know this location. I hope you're not foolish enough to come here yourself. Valeria got up. I must leave now. I hope you'll keep my ancestors' magic tome safe until I return with your restored device. You can ask me for anything you need to restore the recording device, as long as it's something I can get. And one more thing, I'll send you an item to Samiel once I return. An item? You've dyed your hair brown, but anyone could tell you're actually a redhead. Your disguise doesn't seem very good, so I'll have them send you good dyes and disguise tools. Don't worry, I won't poison them. Think of it as an extra layer of protection. Hair dyes and disguise tools? You'll see what I mean after using them. They'll allow you to have 1,000 faces. Valeria burst into laughter. I didn't think you were capable of joking. She got up and extended her hand to Jean. For now, it seems the meeting has been mutually beneficial. Jean silently looked at her slender wrist and tiny hand. Is she acting like this just because she's younger than when I met her in my past life? From what he remembered of Valeria, she would never have offered a handshake in such situations. Jean didn't hesitate to take Valeria's hand. Her hand felt warm in his. Arya Owlheart. What? When you first saw me, why did you call me by my first name as if you knew me? Out of habit from my dreams. Valeria didn't say those words. Instead, She just gave a mysterious smile. Who knows? Until next time. Right after Jean returned to the Garden of Swords, a meeting was held. It wasn't just for the flag bearers. The meeting was attended by the heads of the Elders' Council and other key figures of the council. This meant the meeting wasn't about mere mission assignments. It was about critical matters within the clan. Everyone rose from their seats when Rosa entered. She indicated they should sit back down with a look and spoke. Today's meeting will focus on a person named Arya Owlheart. Chapter 317. Joshua's Counterattack. 1. Arya Owlheart. Most of the flag-bearers exchanged confused glances with each other when Valeria's most precious false name slipped from Rosa's lips. They had no idea who this was. The only flag-bearers who knew the name were Jean and Joshua. But no one dared to ask Rosa, "Mother, who is she?" and demand an explanation. Unfair as it may be, asking such questions would only serve as proof of their own incompetence. On the other hand, the elders who had already decided on Joshua's reward obviously knew who Arya was. They shrewdly emphasized their superior knowledge of the flag-bearers, making it sound like a matter of course. "You have made a great decision, Command Matriarch and Second Flag-bearer. We must find this person quickly, even if we have to inform the rest of the flag-bearers in the process." The elder chief and head of the Black Sword Guild, Jordan Runcandle, spoke with a smile. The vice chief and head of the Law Guardians, Lynn Milcano, nodded her head, while Telrod Runcandle, the council secretary who was also the head of the People's Guardians, showed little reaction. Jordan subtly glanced at Joshua. The second flag-bearer played a great role in this. "I agree, Elder Chief Jordan. We were able to get ahead of the Zippels thanks to the second flag-bearer discovering the name." "I agree too." All the elders who supported Jordan and Joshua chimed in, leaving the flag-bearers flabbergasted. "But Joshua hasn't told us anything. Damn old bags. What are they whispering about? Can't they explain things before discussing them?" This is what Myo and En were thinking. Why are the elders making it seem like Joshua achieved something big? What has he accomplished this time? Are they finalizing their preparations to make him the patriarch? Ran and Vuigo. Yes, let's keep quiet around here. But let's not forget to act like we're discussing something serious. The Tana twins. Have you heard anything about this? I don't care. Dyphus and Mary. All of this is cumbersome and annoying. And finally, Luncia. While her children were busy with their own thoughts, Rosa spoke again. "I suppose most of the flag-bearers wouldn't understand what the name Arya Owlheart means. Allow me to explain. This person is the last survivor of the Hister clan, a clan that once posed a threat to the Zippels." Rosa continued her explanation about the Hister for some time. She talked about their active period, why they were able to pose a threat to the Zippels with their magic, and how such an amazing clan was wiped from history in such a way that there was barely any information left about them. She seems to know quite a lot about it. In his past life, Jean was not a flag-bearer, so he had no place in such meetings. Therefore, what Jean understood then about the Runcandle clan was very limited. The Runcandles were much more interested in the Hister clan than Jean ever thought. Therefore, if we secure Arya Owlheart of the Hister clan first, and obtain information from the Hister's inheritance places and register the magic, we will have a key asset to press the Zippels. Jean was genuinely surprised that Rosa mentioned magic registration and the Hister's inheritance places. He didn't think Rosa would share such information with anyone other than Joshua. Then again, I suppose it's not a big surprise since she really only shares it with a few key council members and the flag-bearers. The flag-bearers' eyes gleamed with anticipation as Rosa finished her explanation. They sensed an opportunity approaching. "Mother, so the purpose of this meeting is to assign the flag-bearers to search for this individual?" "Yes, Ran. The search for Arya Owlheart and her capture is an ongoing mission for all Runcandle flag-bearers starting today. It will be classified as top secret, so the use of any external manpower is strictly prohibited." "Understood. If word of us seeking the Hister leaks outside, we will stop at nothing to trace the leak and severely punish anyone involved. There will be no exceptions. So be careful in selecting your guardian knights for this mission, flag-bearers." The The flag-bearers nodded with heavy hearts. She declared that there would be no exceptions in punishment. If any knight under their control accidentally leaked any information while carrying out this mission, it would be they who bore the responsibility. They could very well be stripped of their flag-bearer status, and that would essentially lead to banishment or exile with no promise of return. The Zippels are also fervently searching for this person, but they still don't know the name Arya Owlheart. We must secure the Hister before the Zippels at all costs. Yes, ma'am. Jordan pretended to cough and drew attention. As your elder chief, there are a few things I would like to inform the flag-bearers about this mission. First and foremost, I hope you all understand clearly that this is a crucial matter for the clan, not a race for flag-bearer achievements. Jordan paused and took his time. Secondly, make sure to report all mission progress to the current highest flag-bearer at the moment, the second flag-bearer. His words confirmed some of their fears. Disappointment was evident in the eyes of several flag-bearers. They thought it was a fair opportunity to achieve something for themselves without Rose's discrimination. But it was all for Joshua once again. Of course, they all knew Joshua would become the patriarch no matter what they did. So, they didn't really expect to contend for the patriarch seat through their achievements as flag-bearers. But in moments like these, they felt let down. They almost felt like puppets to occupy the seats, not flag-bearers. Why had they fought all their lives to become flag-bearers if this was what they got in return? They didn't need to become patriarchs, but they wanted to take pride in what they did. Rosa could see through their thoughts, but she knowingly ignored their desires completely. She had trained them in such a way that they could never rebel against her unless they could prove their rights, no matter how many times she ignored them. In that regard, of the 11 flag-bearers left in the clan, there were only 4 people who could openly show their displeasure against Rosa and the elders in such situations. Elder Chief, I fail to understand why the mission progress report must go through the second flag-bearer. The 4th flag-bearer is right, Elder Chief. The second flag-bearer is literally a flag-bearer. He is not a patriarch or a patriarch in charge. It was Dyphus and Mary. They had always fought for their rights, even before being turned into flag-bearers. Both in feats and mission execution, they had never disappointed Siren, Rosa, and the Council of Elders. But not causing any disappointment didn't mean they were on good terms with the entire council. They didn't respect Jordan, and they hadn't given up on the patriarch seat. It seems the 4th and 7th flag-bearers have a complaint. Of course we do. This is a violation of our pride as flag-bearers. You mentioned that this is a crucial matter for the clan. I fail to see why you are creating divisions within the clan. If you think that way, perhaps it should have been you who delivered us the name Arya Owlheart. What? The one who discovered the name that not even the Zippels obtained was the second flag-bearer, not you two. This means that this achievement solely belongs to the second flag-bearer. In fact, we did you all a favor by allowing you to share in his accomplishments. Jordan refuted their argument easily, as if he had foreseen it. Oh, really? I had no idea. Then maybe Joshua, no, the second flag-bearer, could search for this person himself. What's the point of gathering us all here? Is it your idea, Elder Chief? Or is it Mom's? Insolence. Perhaps not as much as the way you treat us, Elder Chief Jordan. Mary spoke with controlled anger. Rosa raised her hand. Enough, 7th flag-bearer. I understand you're angry, but maintain your manners with the Elder Chief. And Elder Chief Jordan, I hope you understand. They're young and hot-blooded. Rosa's words halted the 3 angry individuals. Rosa then turned her gaze to the other 2 flag-bearers who had the right to speak. Jean. And Luncia. 3rd flag-bearer, 12th flag-bearer. Do you have anything to add? Nothing. Me neither. Then this is what I suggest. Fine. In response to the request of the 4th and 7th flag-bearers, you will report to me directly instead of going through Joshua. Furthermore, I will hand over control of the eastern 5th region of Huffister to whoever captures the Hister. Upon hearing these words, the eyes of everyone present in the meeting room immediately fixated on Rosa. Even Joshua and Jordan, who were clearly on Rosa's side, were greatly surprised by this statement. Only one person remained calm. It was Jean. Control over the eastern 5th region. It almost makes the 400 million gold coin reward for my head look like small change. Joshua was as surprised as the others, so he turned his head to look at Rosa. But in the process, his eyes caught a serene look on Jin's face and he felt that something was amiss. Control over the Eastern Fifth Region. It was virtually the most significant reward a flag-bearer could achieve, apart from becoming the Patriarch. Even if one didn't become Patriarch, having control over the Eastern Fifth Region allowed them to amass their own force. Indeed, among the regions that any flag-bearer or elder could possess, the Eastern Fifth Region ranked among the top 3 most coveted lands. The rest of the flag-bearers, who had had no choice but to hide their disappointment when Joshua took all the credit, were inwardly rejoicing. It no longer mattered whether Siren and Rosa had trusted them before this. As long as they could find Arya Alhart and bring her in, they could now rule as overlords over the Eastern Territories. Now, I hope everyone realizes how crucial this mission is. Let me repeat it. This is a top secret and ongoing duty for all of you. Stay vigilant and bring me Hister. That's all. The meeting is over. The flag-bearers and elders nodded to Rosa and began to leave the meeting room. The stewards and scribes who had been waiting for their masters outside the meeting room followed each of their masters. The negotiation between Mother and Kiliak Zippel must have broken down if he's still looking for her. But the Eastern Fifth Region? What exactly is Mother trying to snatch from the Zippels in exchange for my teacher? Not even Jean could guess what it might be. However, it had to be something of great magnitude, considering how Rosa was offering up the Eastern Fifth Region for it. Jean was about to head back to his room with his mind full of thoughts. Joshua called out to Jean. "What's wrong, second flag-bearer?" Jean turned around. Joshua had his steward and scribe leave them in private. Now only the 2 of them were left in the hallway. What Joshua said next was something Jean had not expected at all. "You've already found her, haven't you?" "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about Arya Alhart. You've already found that person." Chapter 318. Joshua's Counterattack, 2. In the conference room, everyone held their breath at Rosa's stunning proposal, and at that moment, Joshua never imagined that within Jin's imperturbable expression hid something special. Indeed, Jin always maintained his poker face, so there was no reason for it to appear unusual. However, the reason he suddenly asked Jin if he had already found Arya Alhart was purely a judgment based on instinct. There was a moment of silence. "What?" I sat there too calmly when everyone else was going crazy. And even if I did, it wouldn't be enough to speak so confidently. Jean quickly searched his memory but couldn't figure out when or how Joshua had learned about his encounter with Valeria. For the first time since he started facing Joshua, Jean felt nervous. Fortunately, he didn't lose his characteristic poker face when Joshua began to talk about Valeria. Jean smiled. Regardless of how Joshua had found out, it was a problem that could be resolved simply by maintaining a poker face. "Both you and our mother seem quite concerned, judging by the nonsense you're spouting," Jean said. "Little brother," Joshua retorted. "Don't use such a friendly term. We're not like brothers who get along, are we?" Jean said. "This is a matter more important than you think," Joshua said. "That's why Mother offered the Eastern Fifth Region as a reward." Joshua speculated confidently at first, but as it was only a hunch, he found it difficult to keep the conversation going. "Does that mean you haven't found that person yet either?" Joshua didn't dare to ask directly. "If you hand over that person to me, I will give you not only the Eastern Fifth Region but more than that. I swear by my name and the honor of the family." "Why do you keep stumbling upon such interesting falsehoods? Let's hear the story again." "Your life." Jean burst into laughter. Then he looked at Joshua with a serious expression. "You still lack skill in jokes. Didn't I tell you last time that your chance to kill me had already passed? And the safety of your comrades." Joshua hoped Jean would be visibly shaken by that remark, just as he was when he referred to him as little brother and got angry. But Jean felt no need to get angry about it. "I wondered when he would use my comrades as hostages, but here it is." The comrades, while being Jin's strongest bulwark, were at the same time his greatest and only weakness. That's why Jean and his comrades had already prepared for the possibility that Rosa and Joshua would use them as leverage. I'm starting to wonder about the value of rescuing the Master. Pulling out the most powerful card to pressure me when even the Eastern Fifth Region isn't enough. Jin's curiosity about what Rosa would receive in exchange for handing over Hister grew rapidly. Jin's life and the lives of his comrades. What did Joshua mean when he said he would guarantee two things to Jean? It's highly likely that the issue is related to the contract of Soderette. Mother may have asked Zippel for a demon god orb or another means to transfer my contract to Joshua. It was only speculation, but it seemed like a plausible development. Joshua's goal isn't to kill Jean, but to take away the powers Jean obtained from Soderette, and Rosa's goal was likely to correspond with his. Mother has been acting strangely since the last time. For her, transferring only my contract to Joshua and using me as a flag-bearer for our family would be the best outcome. Indeed, even without Soderette's power, Jean can still use magic and the power of legends. Jean was considered the most outstanding of Runcandle's flag-bearers and was also someone who could be evaluated as having great potential. Just with his ability as a swordsman, Jean was demonstrating enough growth to be mentioned as the next patriarch. Even without Soderette's power and even if he couldn't use magic or the power of legends, Jean was still regarded as Runcandle's flag-bearer with the most talent and great potential. Like Rosa, there was no reason for her to give up her younger son unless Jean betrayed the family or handed shadow energy to Joshua. Furthermore, the fact that Zippel could transfer the god's contract was almost confirmed, considering that the time contractor in the past and present life were different. Also, Mither-Elner and Baradin used space explosions. Various thoughts swirled in Jin's mind. The various scenarios unfolding in his mind all boiled down to one question. Why were Joshua and his mother so obsessed with Hister? What do you think? Do you want to talk now? Joshua asked, and Jean smiled. I'll say it again. Never found Hister. I don't even know why you're saying this. It's like you're doubting me on a hunch. I'll give you 10 days. Bring me Hister within that time frame. If you want to achieve something so big, it's better for you to go out and run to catch Hister instead of wasting time with this nonsense. Jean turned around and added, just a few words. I hope you're not one of those fools willing to bleed for delusions. It means there's nothing good in recklessly touching my comrades. Let me take your advice into account. This is not advice. It's a warning. Do you understand? In times like this, if we were in a narrow hallway where it's just you and me, I might be impulsive and draw my sword to cut the second son's throat without thinking about the consequences. How pathetic. Do you think you could beat me one-on-one? If you're confident, we could fight right now. Joshua shrugged as if he didn't care. The 12th flag-bearer is in a better position than I thought. Even if I defeat you, you have nothing to lose. Jean challenged him because he thought Joshua wouldn't fight. Anyway, as Joshua had said, even if he lost in a one-on-one fight, he wouldn't lose anything, whereas Joshua would lose his reputation even if he won. Joshua watched Jin's back until he disappeared. Then he was certain. His dear little brother must have met Arya Owlheart at least once before. If the younger one really didn't know anything about Hister, he would have offered me a reverse deal when I talked to him. The Jean that Joshua recognized was that kind of person. If he saw a desire in his opponent, he would find a way to use it, even if he didn't have a weapon to shake that desire. That was the terrifying side of his little brother that he saw. But now, even though he revealed his desire first, he was only trying to avoid the subject when he didn't know anything about Hister. Jean didn't seem intent on proposing a deal to him or playing with him. That's why Joshua was sure about the relationship between Jean and Hister. He smiled as if he had achieved something big. But even if I really kidnap or kill his comrades, Jean will never hand Hister over to me. Rather, it was just provoking the sleeping beast. It's good that the younger one knows Hister. If she's with him, not even our Runcandle and Zippel will be able to find Hister. Hister is safe. The younger one would never let go of the cards he held. That was another thing Joshua understood about him. Although they were clearly enemies or even nemesis, Joshua respected Jean. From before Jean showed his abilities until now, Joshua had never underestimated Jean even once. My lord, Howard, the first-class butler who had retired, approached Joshua. He was the younger brother of Butler Hines and one of Joshua's closest aides. "Have you gained something, sir?" "I caught an unexpected huge fish." "Howard, do not assign any of my knights to search for Hister. It's a waste of resources." "Understood." Instead, spread false information about Hister to the other flag-bearers. While the flag-bearers are concerned about finding Hister, make sure to secure as many condemned to death as possible and send them to Rick Alton. Howard did not comment on Joshua's decision. "And look for a list of all our business partners, including merchants, wealthy individuals, and nobles connected to Tychon Free City. Our spies have already identified that information. As the information is updated weekly, the margin of error is minimal." Joshua nodded in satisfaction. "Cut it all off. I want to dry up their funds a bit. It doesn't matter if the younger one and his comrades find out that their business partners have disappeared, but we can't let the outside world know that we pressured them. I'll make sure to keep them quiet." "How should we deal with Zippel's business partners, the Hidden Palace, and the Empire? It's difficult to maintain security in those areas." "How many places are there?" "I'll have to check, but I heard there are about 10. Of those, nearly half are Zippel's. Leave the Hidden Palace alone and check if the rest of the business partners have any connection to the Zippel clan or the Imperial family. If not, send pirates to raid and incite an attack." "Understood." There's no need to provoke a fierce animal into a full confrontation. Instead, Joshua decided to gently scratch Jin's nerves by cutting off his money supply and subtly threatening his comrades to see how Jin would react. And he wondered if Jin's comrades would endure all sorts of disadvantages and stand by his side to the end. "He's clever enough not to come at me with a full-blown attack. But it will be quite annoying." 10 days had passed. April 10, 1799. Tychon Free City. Cashimir's expression was grim as he sat in his office. The city's economy had ground to a halt at an unprecedented pace. Over 80% of business partners had already requested contract suspensions, enduring breaches and fines, and the remaining 20% seemed poised to disappear as well. The power of the second flag-bearer of Runcandle is enormous. Not a single business partner has revealed why they are cutting their deals. Young Master Jin, disguised as Murakan alongside Gilly, had rushed to Tychon as soon as he heard the news. "Brat, that brother of yours. Who does he take after to be so ruthless?" "I don't know. Young Master, you said to prepare thoroughly for the second flag-bearer's attack. But I didn't expect it to be like this. For now, we're solving the problems with emergency funds, but I don't know how long we can hold out." Joshua's attack was effective. In a way, it caused more damage than a direct murder threat. Tychon's leaders fought for recognition as a state and handed out vast amounts of money to each faction every month, so the damage was significant. "It's frustrating, but we still don't have a financial power comparable to that bastard's, no." "Joshua." "No, that bastard. We can't beat him." "Young Master, even tourists are leaving when they heard the news of pirate ships appearing in nearby waters." Gilly spoke with anger. Jin's emergency funds were substantial, but not enough to sustain an entire city. "I didn't expect it to turn out like this either. But we can't just sit and watch when he's so eager for a fight." "Do you have any plan, young master?" When Kashmir asked, Jin lifted the corners of his lips. "It looks like I'll go and attack one of his villas." Chapter 319, Joshua's Counterattack 3. If it's Joshua's villa. "Do you mean the secret villa Lady Luna mentioned to you last time?" "That's right, Sir Kashmir. It's a place I've been thinking of raiding at some point anyway." Joshua had dozens of private villas, but only 5 were classified as secret villas or safe houses. "My older sister's trip to the Black Sea is good news for me as well. Please take this opportunity to find out what kind of missions our father and the former Black Knights undertook there, and why our father's Runcandle is so obsessed with the Black Sea." "All right. It's the first time our father has taken someone other than his comrade to the Black Sea. So, I'll bring you news that satisfies you. In return, tonight you have to sit with me and tell me the stories you've experienced outside all night long." Before departing for the Black Sea, Luna told Jin about 2 of the 5 secret villas. It was information she had gathered after receiving Jin's request to find out something about Joshua during the incident in the Holy Kingdom. Are you suggesting we attack it right now? I'd love to, but Kazan and Yulian haven't returned from the southeast of Mytel yet. Dragons couldn't join the attack on Joshua's secret villa. If a dragon got involved, there could be trouble if there were any survivors among the enemies. As the Black Dragon was the family's guardian deity and the Silver Dragon was unofficially sought by Vermont, they couldn't attack Runcandle. And I need to confuse that bastard as well. Let's show him a bit of how hard I'm working to get money. Also, once his secret villa is exposed, I wonder what expression he'll make. But young master, the possibility of us actually fighting is high. The leaders of the Seven-Colored Peacocks are already meeting with Vermont's contacts. Frankly, I don't want to use the Imperial family's money. I understand, Sir Kashmir. Of course, if the situation doesn't improve, I'm willing to bow my head to the Imperial family. The Emperor, if I demand it, he'll surely give me a huge sum of money. He wouldn't choose to lower his pride before the Imperial family that had exiled him. Kashmir was willing to abandon his pride, as a good leader should, but he didn't want to use that last resort unless absolutely necessary. Jean also hoped that Kashmir wouldn't have to endure such humiliation because of him. As for the money, I'll try to get some, so don't worry. Strawberry, no. As Gilly said, it's still impossible to beat Joshua in terms of financial power, but we'll prevent the city from going bankrupt. Kashmir placed his hand on Jin's shoulder, who looked touched and apologetic as he smiled. I'm embarrassed, young master. It seems like I keep burdening you with too much. What are you talking about, Sir Kashmir? The problem originally started because of me. Don't think like that. Rather, I should apologize. No, young Master Jean did nothing wrong. You're playing like children. You're both at fault. So, how do you plan to get the money? You're a dragon. Do you have any hidden wealth? No, I don't. Even if I did, would it still be there, in Storm Castle where the Runcandles live, which used to be my hideout? In that case, you'll have to sell your vomit and scales. I'm sure they'll sell well as perfume or armor materials. What? Then, Gilly burst into laughter. It's a joke. Don't get so nervous. First of all, we have to borrow some money. We also have to start the business we postponed. What kind of business? The business that my friends from the Golden Snow Tribe prepared. I must move diligently. It hasn't been long since I returned from vacation, so I can't leave the Garden of Swords for long. The next day, Jean arrived in Vermont once again in disguise and with a fake identity to enter the country. He dyed his hair white and dressed as an aristocratic artist using cosmetics from the Golden Snow Tribe. It seems I have to keep hiding my identity even after becoming a flag bearer. In his arms, he held a porcelain vase wrapped in the finest silk. Misha, do you really need to take it? I have quite an attachment to it. Jean, there's a place where I need it. Misha, can't you use something else? That's an artwork that's over 1,500 years old, and its value is incalculable. Murakan. Hey, you're a guardian dragon too, right? What's the role of a guardian dragon? The 1,000-year contractor needs this, so give it to him. Come on, hehe. Kid, what do you need this for? How about smashing it in front of her? Misha. Don't say such things, seriously. Stop it, little brother. A while ago, when Jean visited Misha's bar called Velo, he noticed that the interior decoration was extraordinary. The top-class bar was strictly run by partners, and the owner was a dragon who had lived for over 3,000 years with an exceptional sense of aesthetics. Among the decorations were ancient art pieces that not even most archaeologists had ever seen. Jean demanded the porcelain vase, which was in the place Misha cherished the most, her bed, and he had glimpsed it. I wanted to use it at a better time, but I have no choice. This isn't bad either. Thank you, Miss Misha. Jean had requested it just in case he needed it when he found this place. We've arrived, sir. Keep the change. After paying the fare and stepping out of the carriage, an imposing castle soon came into view. This place, where dozens of guards clad in shining armor stood watch in all directions, was the ancestral home of the High Ren clan. the Emperor of the Swords Castle. It was an arrogant yet fitting name for the home of Vermont's most famous swordsman. Jean, who had been admiring the castle for a while, approached the gate. Unlike the intimidating castle, the guards were surprisingly friendly in welcoming Jean. As expected of the Hyran clan, which had an equally benevolent outward image as the Zippel. "What brings you here?" "I am an artisan named Paul Gray Mick. I've come to deliver the ceramics that Sir Dante ordered some time ago." The guards glanced at the ceramics Jean was carrying and then nodded as if they understood. This was because it was common for Dante to order ceramics from time to time. "This friend will guide you. Please go to the reception hall and wait. I must deliver it directly to Sir Dante. I can't guarantee that young Patriarch Dante will come out by himself. However, it's unavoidable as young Patriarch is busy with work. Please don't take offense." The guard almost smiled when referring to Dante as the young Patriarch. While Jean knew that Dante had been handling his affairs firmly even before the regression, experiencing it firsthand was completely different. "I dare not think such a thing. I came unannounced because it was finished earlier than expected. I appreciate your hospitality. You're the most sensible artist I've ever met." Jean followed the guard into the reception hall of the castle. Today, only one person had come to see Hyran, and the vast reception hall seemed empty. Jean had successfully entered. However, he wasn't sure if Dante would recognize the name. Paul Gray Mick. If he didn't understand it, Jean would have to address him differently, which could be problematic. Jean stood still and waited for a while, engaging in conversation with the doorman. About 30 minutes passed. Thudud. Jean heard footsteps coming from the outer hallway of the reception hall. "Gino, where's Paul Gray Mick?" Dante corrected himself hastily after inadvertently calling Jin's name. As he appeared, the doorman respectfully greeted him, and Jean bowed his head as if he had seen his superior. "Well, ahem. I've been waiting for this masterpiece for too long. You should come back now." "Yes, young Patriarch." As soon as the guard left, Dante embraced Jean tightly. "Jean, how could you come here without notifying me? And how long has it been? Have you been well? You've grown stronger since the last time I saw you." It was a familiar and playful voice that Jean hadn't heard in a long time. "Slow down, Dante. You seem a bit taller." "I've grown about 2 centimeters. Did you notice?" Although he had grown, Dante was still much shorter than Jean. It was the inevitable result of his congenital bone structure. But Jean immediately noticed how much Dante had trained during the time they hadn't been in contact. At 19, he had become the young Patriarch, and his sword skills had reached a level that could only be described as genius. It was impressive. Jean wanted to open a bottle of the finest wine to celebrate, but that wasn't why he had come today. "Dante, I have a request." "Oh, anything. What is it? Can you lend me some money?" Asking for money immediately after meeting for the first time in over a year and a few months meant that this friend clearly wasn't a good friend. But Dante thought that if it was Jean, there would be no problem. It meant that even if Jean asked for something larger than money, Dante would listen. "How much do you need?" "Oh, while we're at it, I should return the money you lent me when I escaped from the Holy Kingdom, and I'll make sure to pay you a huge amount of interest. About 300 million gold coins." "I see. Wait a moment. Say that again." "I need 300 million gold coins." Dante felt cold sweat on his back for the first time in a long time. 300 million gold coins were a huge amount of money, even for the young Patriarch of Hyran. "Did Runcandle ask you to claim a 300 million reward for naming you the flag-bearer?" "No, it's not that. Can you get it? Even I need my grandfather's permission to use such a large amount of money. However, I don't have enough justification to ask my grandfather." Jean removed the silk wrapping from the ceramics. "What if we say it's for this ceramic?" Dante wasn't particularly knowledgeable about art, but he recognized that Jin's ceramics were not ordinary objects. He owed it to his grandfather, Ron Hyran, who was a ceramics enthusiast and admired them daily in his study and workshop. However, even if it was an exceptional ceramic, could it be worth 300 million gold coins? Dante had his doubts. A few years ago, I was curious about who shook my grandson's heart. A new voice came from beyond the reception hall. Ron Hyran, the patriarch of Hyran, and the invincible knight who competed the longest against the divine star knight, Genesis Knight, Siren Runcandle. It was his voice. I never thought it would be a swindler like this. 300 million gold coins? Were you really listening to that nonsense? What a disappointment, Dante. No, grandfather. He's not a swindler. I'll explain. Schling. Ron drew his sword from his waist. Then, the aura that escaped from the sheath instantly caused a slight earthquake in the reception hall, and the air distorted. Besides, this guy has the distinct dirty smell of Runcandle. Grandfather, I won't kill him. Instead, I'll take one arm as a lesson. So he never shows his face in front of you, my grandson Dante, ever again. Chapter 320. Without food 1. Ron Hyran was undoubtedly one of the greatest knights among the 10-star knights in the world, alongside the mistress of the hidden palace, Talaris Endorma. If he decided to attack, there would be no escape for Jean, no matter how skilled he was. As Ron approached Jean, Dante's eyes trembled uncontrollably. Instinctively, Dante stepped in front of Jean. Step aside. Please, grandfather. Hear me out. I don't want to. Dante couldn't help but remember the promise he made with his grandfather when he visited the Cosmos Arena a few years ago. Sorry, grandfather. Not only did I not win this time, but I also narrowly escaped death twice. You were on the verge of losing your life twice in that vile competition. What in the world happened? Was it a lack of sword skills? Or was there a master blinded by money and gambling hiding there? My sword skills weren't lacking, but I lacked discipline. And although there were no money and pleasure-obsessed masters there, I encountered 2 young individuals who captured my heart. To say it so openly, I'm curious. A kid who doesn't even show interest in the charming women who visit our clan. Very well. What are the names of these people who have shaken my grandson's heart? I'm sorry, grandfather, but I can't reveal their names, and once again, I humbly ask for a favor. Oh, you insolent child. You've just arrived, and you're already making this old man nervous. However, I'll forgive you. What is your request? Dante's mind churned for a moment. Was it really the right time to use that card? Runcandle and Hyran clearly had a competitive relationship. That meant they classified each other as enemies, and had every right to strike each other if they had a valid reason. Therefore, it was a justifiable act for Ron to now cut off Jin's arm, who was in disguise, as an invasion of Heron's territory. Maybe my grandfather really intends to end Jin's life someday. Perhaps it would be better to bring up that promise then. His heart pounded as several calculations raced through his mind. Dante had to make a decision. Should he save the card his grandfather had given him for a day that might never come? Or should he use it now to prevent his friend from becoming a cripple? He closed his eyes. For a moment, Dante made a decision. He couldn't bear to watch his friend's arm being cut off in front of him. Grandfather, please remember the promise we made years ago. But it was already too late. Ron gently pushed aside Dante, who had been blocking Jin's path, and his sword, Rashid, was already poised to strike. Dante's blood ran cold as he watched. Instinctively, he lunged forward, even if he had to use his own body to prevent Ron from cutting Jean. On the other hand, Jean, who was facing Ron head-on, maintained a calm gaze. He didn't lose his composure even when Ron appeared. Bam! Whoosh! Just as Dante was about to shout, he saw his grandfather's sword stop just before reaching Jean. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, Ron burst into laughter, clutching his stomach. You fell for it so easily, didn't you? Ha ha ha, what did you think of this old man's performance? Huh? Seeing my grandson's bewildered face after so long is just adorable. It's driving me crazy. Ha ha. Gee, grandfather? You mean all of this was a joke? Ron, with a mocking smile on his face, couldn't stop laughing for a while. I was very curious when I suddenly saw you looking restless and eager to leave while talking to this old man. That's when Dante realized he had been tricked. In retrospect, something had been amiss from the beginning. Ron Hiran, the grandfather known to Dante, is not someone who would act with such indifference toward something that could hurt his own heart. Why would my grandson be like this over someone who came? Perhaps it's the princess we saw at the last gathering? Or maybe it's the woman from the Hensert clan who used to visit the Sword Emperor's castle alone every day with the utmost sincerity because she liked you, and now she has achieved results. Unintentionally, Jin's eyes widened at that passage. Crazy. Dante, I wondered why you arrived so late. Were you talking to Sir Ron? If it were Runcandle, it would be unimaginable. While talking with the Patriarch, being restless because a friend had come to visit. Well, then, grandfather, you won't harm my friend, will you? Why would I harm someone for no reason who is liked by my grandson? Of course, it's a bit disappointing that the person you hastily searched for is not a woman. But just confirming the identity of that friend you often speak of is enough to make this old man very happy. Thump! Dante suddenly collapsed to the floor. In an instant, Ron's face went pale. Dante, my grandson, has anemia struck you again? Dante, born with an extremely fragile body, often experienced anemia or seizures when subjected to strong blows or exertion. Recently, those symptoms had almost disappeared. I'm sorry, grandfather. This grandson has... Oh no, it's this old man's fault. Listen, call the medical team quickly. At Ron's urgent shout, the medical team rushed in immediately. They skillfully administered medicine to Dante and took him away. We'll talk later. As soon as Jean looked up, Dante lost consciousness. Is my grandson in very bad condition? Is he suffering greatly? It's just anemia. Please don't worry, Lord Patriarch. I'm worried. If anything happens to my grandson, I'll kill all of you. Don't worry, Lord Patriarch. We'll take immediate measures to improve the young patriarch's condition. As the medical team quickly left with Dante, Ron muttered to himself, as if he were the only one suffering and concerned for his grandson. In the reception room, only Jean and Ron remained. I'm late with greetings, sir. Ron Hiran. I'm Jean Runcandle, the 13th son of Siren Runcandle and the 12th flag-bearer. I know your name. I didn't know you had a penchant for disguises. Ron turned slowly to look at Jean. Unlike when he looked at Dante, there was no trace of kindness in his expression. Why were you so confident I wouldn't kill you? Jean gently nodded in response to Ron's question. I thought you wouldn't be so easy to deal with, sir. I considered seriously whether I should cut off one of your arms. If that were the case, it would be my duty to bear the consequences of intruding into the Sword Emperor's castle. You're not a person to be trifled with. You bear a striking resemblance to my enemy when he was younger, Siren. Thank you. It's not a compliment. Your father, even in his youth, was a person unpleasant to the eye. Ron's gaze as he spoke carried a hint of greed. Ceramics. He couldn't take his eyes off the ceramics that seemed to intimidate him as he spoke. His voice filled with determination. Because of you, my precious and beloved grandson, whom I love so much, was nearly injured. How? Will you take responsibility for this? Excuse me, but it seems it's not my responsibility. Yes, it wouldn't be your responsibility. If only you were stronger than me. Ron chuckled under his breath and lightly grabbed Jin's shoulder. As soon as his palm touched Jean, he almost screamed. Ron's invisible energy pierced through Jin's body, instantly paralyzing his organs. It seems like he's trying to create a reverse flow, like the magicians. Jin's bones trembled. Creating a reverse flow in someone's energy was much more challenging than causing a reverse flow in a magician's mana. In fact, it was considered nearly impossible. However, Ron was doing it as if it were nothing. So, do you feel responsible now? Ron's induction of the reverse flow grew stronger. Jin's body trembled, but he didn't scream, and even in the midst of his weakening grip, he didn't let go of the ceramics. First, Dante doesn't have anemia. This statement made Ron's eyes widen in surprise. He couldn't believe that Jean had realized Dante's deception in that brief moment. It was a problem that even he had doubted at first. I know that too. However, he didn't show any surprise outwardly. Even the whitest of dragons get stained when they're with a black dragon. Although Dante had never responded to my jokes like this before, it seems he's learned something from you. He seems to have learned a trick. Ron spoke as he released Jean. Jean wiped the blood from his nose and mouth and took a breath. Dante used his head very well. By pretending to have anemia, he made me confront you head-on and passed the 300 million gold coin judgment onto you, sir. My grandson may not be malicious, but I completely underestimated him. Tisk. So, shouldn't I receive some compensation for that? What? The innocent Dante showed remarkable audacity in trying to deceive Sir Ron. It seems that in the future, when he gains control of the Hyran clan, he won't be backstabbed by Vermont's strategists. Ron was momentarily speechless at Jin's bold attitude. Moreover, I have provoked Dante more than any genius swordsman from Hyran or Vermont. Some of my efforts are fused into Dante's current achievements. Do you want compensation for that too? Yes. Haha. You're not a black dragon, but an evil dragon. You know what that means? It seems to mean that even if you cut me down before I stain Dante with more evil, I won't have anything to say. I won't be able to settle this with words. Honestly, I would like to kill you right now, but I'll refrain for the sake of my grandson. I'll let you live. That's your reward for corrupting Dante. That's not enough. Then, isn't it enough with just that? As the 12th flag-bearer of Runcandle who dared to propose a deal to the owner of the Sword Emperor's castle, leave that ceramics behind and go. Ron smiled as he said the rest. And also, hand over that ancient iron you agreed to receive as a reward for your recent mission to assassinate the Black Knight. If you want to keep on living, of course.